Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for another video in our $25 Start From Scratch challenge. So in this challenge I started with $25, purchased things from the secondhand store mostly, and then some staples from, not staples that you staple with, but the things that you need from the Dollar Tree and Walmart, like scissors, an X-Acto knife, and a piece of fun foam, that type of thing. And I spent $25 completely, $25.16. And this is just to show you that even if you say, I don't have anything, if you really want it, if you really would like to do some crafting, we're going to make a journal with our $25, but you can use these same items to do other things, make flowers, make cards, So this is just to show that you can start out with a small amount of money, still have fun. And the best part about it is that you have to think outside the box. You have to make your own. And that's what really makes what you're doing special. So the first thing I did today, we're going to put some color on things. And so this is the coffee that I had left over from yesterday. It was still in the pot. I dumped it in my tub, and that's why I got the tub, is to do some coloring. And also it kind of holds all my stuff together too. But I just put a couple pieces of paper in here, and now it's been sitting for a while I was pulling everything out. So this paper has sat for a while and we're going to take it out. But then what are you going to do with it when you take it out? So I just want to show you, this is an old plastic, and it's a good one from Walmart, with the felt on the back that's quite heavy. The ones from the Dollar Tree are so thin they don't last very long, and I got this after Thanksgiving last year, and I've been using it for a year, and they last a long time. But so this is a good thing to pick up after the holidays. Don't pick it up before the holidays. They're like $7 or $8. Get them after the holidays when everything goes like 75% off, and you can get them for a couple of dollars, if not even cheaper. So if it's got Easter eggs on it, my one before this was a Christmas one. It had holly all over it, or poinsettias. So it really doesn't matter what it looks like. You're going to make a mess of it anyways. But if you don't have anything like that, you can use a plastic bag to set your items on, because they're going to be wet and they're going to have color on them. And whatever color, we're going to do color today. We're going to do tea-dyed, or not tea-dyed, coffee-dyed. But you don't want that to get all over. So I just cut the bottom off of a plastic bag, just one of the plain old plastic bags. And then I'm just going to, let's cut the handles off too, because they're just going to get in our way. And this is just going to make your bag a lot bigger. And then we're just going to, it doesn't matter if you cut a side or the middle, it really doesn't matter. So we'll just cut that long piece in half so that now we have this really big long piece. And this is probably going to hold 3 or 4 sheets of paper now. So then you're going to put that on your surface to keep your surface protected. So I'm going to bring this back over here, and I'm just going to set my plastic out to the side. Now the thing is that this plastic baggie is a little bit wrinkled, which is really kind of cool, because it may give you, depending on how many wrinkles it has in it, some extra texture on your tea dyed. So that's really cool also. So I'm just going to pull that out, and I'll show you. And this is before it's dry, because it does make a difference. Sometimes they dry darker, sometimes they dry lighter, but I'm just going to show you the difference here. See, so it's really nice. Sometimes when you pull it out of the water, you think, well, that's not very dark, but it is. It's darker than you think it is. So pull it out, open it up, and just lay it on your plastic. And now this one, I'm going to do, I had 2 that were sitting. I'm going to do this one, then I'm just going to get it wet and take it right out. And I'm going to do 2 this way also. And I just ripped the corner. That doesn't matter. You can put one of your stickers on there if you use this as a page in your journal, or you can use this for backing on, like a tag or something to be able to write on. So it doesn't matter if they have little rips or tears here or there. And I'm going to put that one at the other end. Move my light a little bit. And of course, you're going to want to have your plastic all out and ready before you start doing all of your dyeing, so you can just lay it out there. Okay, so that's one of the light ones. And you can let them overlap just a little bit. If they overlap on each other, they will leave a line. right where they overlapped. So if you're looking for some extra texture, sometimes I don't like those lines because they're so straight. I'll just put this one out here. And then I want one more that is just gotten wet and taken out. And if you don't like to stick your hands in there, you can just do it like this. You don't have to. And make sure you get the whole thing wet. Wherever you don't get it wet, it's going to have a white spot, which actually sometimes looks really neat too. So, don't fret if you think, oh man, I don't know if I'm doing this right. There is no right or wrong way. Okay. Now, while we've got this, I'm going to use it because, I don't always have coffee left over. So I took a little bit of our lace and I'm going to put that in there. And I do find now, I did this as dry lace. Sometimes I really like to get my fibers wet before I put color on them. I think they soak up the color better if they are wet. And I didn't really think about it this morning. Now, I mean, it's obviously going to get wet, but also I'm thinking that, and I don't know, because I normally do wet any kind of fiber that I'm doing, whether it's fabric or lace or yarns or anything. I usually wet them first. But you would think that if they're not wet, they're not going to have any water in there, so they would be darker once they soak up whatever liquid you're trying to put on them. So again, totally however you may want to do that. Now, this is kind of neat looking, and so what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to squeeze it out really tight. We've got our plastic to set it on and let it drain. I'm going to put this on top of the edge of my papers because possibly it will leave a pretty mark. Now, maybe not, but we'll see. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do because I've decided even to do something a little different. Okay, so here's our papers. These are my two dark ones. My two light ones are on the other end. I'm not so sure if you can see how it's like kind of got spots where it's a little bubbled up off the plastic and spots where it's touching the plastic. So it's got a little bit of a mottled look on there. That will probably dry that way and give you a really nice look on your paper. That's the nice thing about putting it on the plastic bags. But I'm going to take this lace and I'm going to put it right at the top of my paper. I'm going to actually even cut it off. And I'm going to put it at the top in case it works nicely. I would like to have that across the top. But you can just lay it anywhere. And then I'm just going to kind of flatten it. And because it's kind of rounded, I really want to flatten it on there. So I'm just going to, it's gathered at the top. If it was ungathered, you could put it just totally straight across and it wouldn't pucker. It would lay flat. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to take one of our light colored papers. And for a while, I'm going to set it on top to do two things. Hopefully to get that little pattern on the paper. This will make it a little bit heavier, kind of hold it down, hold it all together. And now this doesn't have to be exactly flat. We could kind of maybe leave a little pucker here or there, because where it doesn't touch that other paper on the bottom, that's going to make a design. I'm going to press this down like this right here. And I'm going to hope that that possibly leaves a lace pattern on my coffee dyed paper. Now, how do you dry your coffee dyed paper? I've never dried it in the oven. I either just let it set to dry, and after a while I will get a new plastic bag, and I'm talking after a few hours. I'll get a new plastic bag, set it out, and go peel these up and turn them over. So the drier side that's on the top is now on the plastic, and the wetter side that's on the bottom, it's wetter because it's sitting on plastic, it's now on the top and it can dry. So I'll just take it after a little while and I'll just pick it up and flip it over on a clean or a dry baggie, and then just let that side dry a little better, and just do that till it's dry. We do heat with a wood stove, and so there are times where I will take it and put it near the wood stove. Don't put it too close. Always make sure you keep an eye on it. If you're going to leave the room or go away, move it way far away from the wood stove. But I don't put it close enough where it's going to start on fire. You say, well, it's wet. Yeah, but it's going to dry. So don't put it too close. And make sure wherever you put it, you're not going to melt your plastic also. Usually if it's by the wood stove, a lot of times I'll put it on newspaper. But newspaper can also draw into your paper, into this. And so I don't really care for the black marks that sometimes newspaper will leave, but you may like that. So try it. So now we've got the rest of our lace here, and I'm just going to take this and I'm going to put it where this piece of paper, because I was able to fit 4 sheets of paper along this plastic baggie. So I'm going to set that there. So we've got some tea dyed lace, and we've got some tea dyed papers, or coffee dyed. I normally tea dye, but we didn't buy any tea. So, and I have coffee. If you normally drink tea, use your used up tea bags, save 4 or 5 of them. I only use my tea bags for 1 cup of coffee. So there's always extra tea color in there. And so what I do is I save 4 or 5 of the used ones, and then I put them all in a cup, get it really hot, let them steep for quite a while, and I use that to tea dye my paper. So what else do we have here then? Well, I want to do some tea dye of the shorthand paper that we got. So I want to go ahead and get some color on a few of those. And what I do whenever I do any kind of dyeing is, this is, like I said, there was probably maybe a cup of coffee left, and that's what I have in here. And what I usually do, unless I just totally get bored with it, is I just continue using it until I use it all up. Once there's just not enough in there, usually the last thing I'll do is wipe out my thing with a piece of fabric that I'm dyeing, so that I don't waste it. But again, there's 1 cup in here. You don't need a ton. You don't need a half of a container of whatever liquid you're using. You can use coffee, you can use tea, you can use instant coffee or instant tea. I've seen people, and I've never done it before, but they're really cool, and I just haven't done it because my kids are grown and I don't have any, and I never think of it when I go to the store. But I've seen people dye with Kool-Aid, and not the kind with sugar in it, but just the plain Kool-Aid. And so those papers turn out really pretty and colorful. So if you have a little Kool-Aid in your home, and that's the whole point of this, is there are some things that you have to have. You really do need some paper. You really do need some scissors. But if you have anything in your home, use what you have in your home. The only reason that I'm only going to use what I purchased here is for those who think that they don't have anything. The more as we go along, the more you'll think, oh, I have that, or I have that, or, and you've seen what I purchased. So if you've seen what I purchased and you think, oh, I already have scissors, I don't need those, I already have this and that, and I don't need those, then by all means, don't get them. You don't even have to spend the whole $25. See what you can do on less if you have a lot of those things. But I thought $25, if you work it out over a few weeks even, you can just spend like $5 a week until you get collected up what you need. We're not using everything every day. And then I had got that bag of fibers. This was a light color. There were 3 colors: light blue, dark blue, or dark turquoise, and a greeny color. This is the only one that I think will take color. And so I wanted to dye this because it might match my tea-dyed papers a little bit, and I wanted to see what it would look like. I've never tea-dyed color before. Like I said, when you're working on a smaller budget, it makes you think outside the box, and you come up with some really cool things that you might not have ever thought of if you had just went out and bought everything you wanted. Okay, so now we have this, and I'm going to lay this across my papers, because it may leave some marks. And I'm going to have to cut a new, and this is, I had that other lace was thick, and then this is the thin lace that I had. I wound up with that little baggie, had 3 different laces in it. One of them was just a cuff, so there's not much there. And and it's already kind of cream colored, so I'm not going to dye it at all. But now these two laces look a lot alike, but they may dye totally differently. And that one I squeezed out. I don't really want to squeeze it out too much. A little bit. Kind of like shake it. Shaken, not stirred. Okay, let's throw that out on the plastic. That one's a lot darker than the other one is. And then we need some, I like to have my fabric dyed a little bit. I want it to have color. So what I did was I took my curtain and I just cut the top off. Actually, I ripped the top off, and I did want to show you. I didn't bring a paper towel, so I'm going to use this to dry my hands on. Okay, so I had just a long sheer curtain, and if I can find where I just cut that off. Okay. This was the top. I cut this sewn part to here, and then it ripped really nicely. And I'm going to show you how to do that. I'll make just a nice little, like a 1-inch ribbon size. And now this is going to rip. Oops, I didn't go past the sewing part. There we go. It's going to rip really nicely. And whenever you rip something like that, the edges kind of like curl up, and you're going to get strings that you'll want to possibly take out, or you might want to leave them there. But that gives us a nice strip. Now, down along the edge where the other side, where this hem was, that was where I tried it first. And so I cut it and I started ripping it, and it doesn't rip straight. It went from being this wide to going into my sewing. So some of your fabrics, and sewers would know a lot more about this than I do, but some fabrics rip both ways. Some fabrics really only rip one way, and this is one of those that really only rips well one way. Trying to rip it the other way makes it go kind of kittywampus, unless it's just the way they had it sewed. Let's try ripping this one. See, and this is, it doesn't even, yeah. So this one will rip this way, but not this way. So when I cut it and I want to rip it, I'm going to rip it that way. If I just want to cut it, it doesn't matter which way. So I might as well just throw this in here too. And we're just going to soak up some of this coffee with the one that's just one layer. That's really pretty. And see how that's kind of rosy? Kind of looks like a little bit of a rose. I'm going to drop it on a piece of my paper that way. And it's going to leave some kind of mark probably. The thing is, you know, I know what I've had before. I know what I've done before. But you'd be surprised when you try and replicate something that you've done, especially if you have something that you really fell in love with. And so you're trying to replicate it. The thing about, you know, like doing things like this is you can't do the same thing twice. And nobody else is going to have one exactly like yours. Now right here, because there's a bubble inside, there's no coffee there. Now the coffee may soak into that, but I'm going to leave it like that because then I might have that model look when it's dry. I'm just going to throw that out there. And we'll throw that last piece out there. Now I'm going to need to cut another bag so that I have a place to lay out my book pages, but those look really nice. And so I'll need to take those out, and I'm going to grab, okay, I wanted to grab a paper towel because I don't want to get my curtain was very large. I didn't mind touching it with dirty hands, but my pillowcase is not as big, so I don't want to get it all yucky where I don't want to dye it. Excuse me. This is a pillowcase that I bought. I'm going to cut this off, and I will tea dye some of this, and I'm going to tea dye a couple of strips or coffee dye, whatever I can whatever I can soak up out of here. But I'm going to rip this just like I ripped the curtain and throw it in there, but I want to take the paper out first. So I am going to set all of this aside to dry, get ready to do some coloring of our paper, and I will be right back. Okay, so it's really cold here, so that feels really good. I just got it started, but I did want to just show you how I laid everything out. So this is what I did with that 1 cup of coffee. So we have our, right there is the curtain, and then our regular papers. That's the top half of the top of the pillowcase, and then we've got our lace and our fibers. The fibers did come out to here, but I wanted this to maybe be a little bit more plain because all of them have something on them. But I wanted to show you already, look at what it did. See, it gave those little marks right there from having those fibers over here. So that's the cool thing. You never know what you're going to get. And then there are the other papers that we had done, parts of our curtain. And I just kind of folded those in an odd way. And then the rest of those papers. And, oh, I have to open that up. That is the, I did 2 strips of cotton. So that's what I did. That's how I lay it out. Make sure you keep it far enough away. And make sure that you don't dye your flooring. I have newspapers underneath the bags. And luckily I picked tile when I picked it. That kind of matches coffee and tea staining, because if I were to get a stain on it from the coffee or the tea, you'd never notice. So I'm going to let you go and I'll be right back and we'll do some colored paper. Okay, I'm back and I'm going to show you one of my favorite ways to put color on paper. And so we're going to take the washable markers that I got at the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to pick some colors that go nicely together. So I'm going to do red, orange, and yellow. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to, this is just a Menards plastic bag, and then I have a second Menards plastic bag. So you can use any plastic bags that you have. I like the Menards ones because they're a little bit sturdier than the Walmart or the Dollar Tree bags, but those will work also. And when I normally do this, I do it with like a plastic file separator that goes like in a, and usually I would do the yellow first so that I don't get the colors on my yellow, but I forgot to do that because I was talking, so I will just scribble off the color that gets on here when I'm done getting some yellow on. But yeah, you can use any kind of flat plastic that you have. You need 2 pieces that are as big as your piece of paper that you want to color. I'm just going to get the extra color off of there. And then you're going to just need some water. Now, I just have an old hairspray bottle. You can use perfume bottles, hairspray bottles, cleaning bottles if they're not like a toxic kind of cleaner. Just whenever you have a spray bottle that gets empty, they don't need to be pretty or, you know, fancy or special, like little tiny clear bottles. Any spray bottle works. So now this one sprays kind of like in a, it doesn't spray really misty. I like misty sprayers better. But you have to be careful because when it hits the plastic, it kind of pops. So make sure you protect your surface because some of your color is going to splash out a little bit. And I'm just going to try and not spray it too hard so it doesn't get too far all over the place. I was doing this yesterday with Papa sitting at the table with me, and he's like, hey, he got wet. So once you put your color, your watercolor markers down, then you're going to put some water on it. Then you're going to put a second piece of plastic, and like I said, you can use any plastic that you have over top of it, and then just squash it down, squash it around a little bit. And then just look at it. Now, if you have a spot where it's like you've got a scribble spot still left, go ahead and kind of like put a little bit more pressure there to kind of move that around, because otherwise that will show up on your paper. And then you're just going to take a piece of your paper, put it down, and see, I don't know if you can see, I'm sure you can't see, but there's little tiny splash marks, little dots on here, which is where it splashed from my spraying. So like I said, make sure you protect your surface. Just put that one down, put your bag over top of it, and then just give it a rub. There we go. Now, I used these bags yesterday. I probably should have wiped them off with a damp paper towel because there are spots where I can tell I had blue on here, and but blue and orange make brown. So there are some spots on here that are a darker color, but that's okay. And then what I do is I look at it and I say, okay, I need some color right here. And so while there's still some color on my paper, or I mean on my bag, I just take my piece of paper and grab that color where I need to get it. Some right in there. And then I'm gonna, oops, I have some more color over here. No use in wasting any of that color. I'm gonna take this one. And it's still got quite a bit over here, and that's kind of a brown color, but that's what we've got. And you know, we may need that color. So don't be disheartened if you, like me, forget to get rid of your blue and turn your orange into brown. And then I've got some here, and I need quite a bit right here along this edge, so I'm going to just grab some of that color. There. Okay, now I can say, okay, I like that, or I can go ahead and scribble some more and get some more color on here, but I really do like that. I'm the one thing that a lot of times I don't quite get color out to the edge, and so then I like to go ahead and put that, because otherwise when you're cutting things, and you've got this big white spot, you know, I don't like that. But I do like the way that this looks. And even though there is white here in places, it's not any kind of a white that, you know, I mean, I kind of like the way this line goes right down here. So there we go. And that is how you use your markers. We'll do one more of that color. And then, you know, another nice mix is blue and purple look really nice together, and green and yellow look really nice together. Just think about the colors that you're putting down as far as what color will they turn if they mix together. And like I said, there was some blue on these bags, and so that's where we got that brown from. And so if you don't want brown, don't mix orange and blue. Now, if you want one that has more brown in it, maybe to match your tea-dyed papers or something, then try some orange and some of the orange and blue, because that's going to kind of turn to brown when it mixes together. So we're just going to put some water on here. Make sure you get your water out to your edges so that they mix. And then we'll take another, oops, nope, we don't need the paper yet. Hold on a minute. I have a big smudge of brown on my other bag, so I'm going to wipe that off really quick. Okay. Take this, set it on top, smush it around a little bit. And if you only have one bag, you could separate the bag so that then you have two pieces of plastic that you can mush together. And then just take your paper, put your plastic back over top of it. Give it a nice rub. Ooh, I like the wrinkles in this one. And I've got a little bit in this corner that I want some color on. And I like that side the way it is. Now this side, I do want to get some color over in here. And up here along this edge. And I like that, and I'm going to call that good. Now, I have still some color left, so I'm just going to take this piece of paper and just pick up some of that color. And once the color kind of dries on your plastic, then you can wipe it off with a damp. They're washable markers, so you can just wipe it off with a damp washcloth when you're done using those colors. If you're going to use the same color again, then you don't need to wipe it off. But when you're going to change colors, just wipe it with a damp washcloth or a paper towel or napkin. And so there we go. Now this one is just a little bit of color, and I'm going to leave that way, and then the other side is pretty plain. But I'll leave that because I might want something that's not quite so colored. So I'll show you. I'm going to flip it over. I've got orange on this side. Oh, I was going to say I don't have any way to wipe it off, but I do because I have water right here in this. I'll take the orange off because we'll do a blue and a purple. Okay, so now I know that side is pretty clean. I'm going to look at this side of this one. There. We're going to call that good. See, there was still a lot of color on there. And then we'll go ahead and we'll grab the blue and purple, and we'll do one in that color. Blue and red looks nice together. You know, just think about your colors that will mix. You could even do one. There's a brown in here. There's a black in here. You might want that for some reason. But the nice thing is that this gets color all over your paper. The watercolor paper that I make like this is, I make a lot. I use it a lot. It is one of my favorite papers because I just like the way that it looks. I also like how easy it is to make. But it is really one of the favorite looks that I have. And like I said, you just have to wipe it up with a damp towel or something, so it's a really easy cleanup also. Now for some reason my sprayer didn't want to work. There we go. Alrighty. Put our towel over it. Give it a smush, give it a rub. And now right here, there are like my actual scribble lines. I want to try and make that go away because I don't like to have lines on my paper. If I wanted to scribble on my paper, I would just do it right on my paper. So there we go. Grab a piece of paper. And you don't need to press it down when you set it down because once you put the other plastic on top, then you're going to press it down. So, okay. And then we're going to look at this one. That one's got a really nice line. I'm liking the way these lines turn out. I usually use a pretty solid piece of plastic. And I like the way that that looks too. Maybe a little bit of color in the two corners. And this corner also I'd like some color on. A little bit right here. On both sides. A little bit over in here. Yeah, I'm not going to get rid of those wrinkles because I really like those. And these dry very fast. This is not like your other colored papers or your tea-dyed or coffee-dyed papers where you get them all wet. They're a little bit wet, but not too bad. Now I'm going to do one piece where I'm just going to pick up the color that's left. Remember to move your paper. I have a habit of just like taking my paper and going like this, and I'm getting all my color right in that spot. So remember to turn your paper around as you're picking up your color. Bring this one over here and try and get some of this color off. And there we go. Now we have a piece that's just lightly colored. And like I said, you just set those aside. They're going to be dry very quickly. So that is another way to get some colored paper. So now we have our tea-dyed papers. And then we have our, or not tea-dyed. I always say tea-dyed because that's what I make most of the time. But we did coffee-dyed this time because that's what I had. So now we've got some of our light colored or our colored papers and our coffee dyed papers, and I will show you another way to do colored paper in just a second. I'll be right back. Actually, I shouldn't stack these quite yet because they're still just a little bit damp, but not too bad at all. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and now we're going to do some maybe solid colored papers. We'll see. This is something I do whenever I paint, and especially if I use a lot of one color and my water is a pretty color, then I use that water to color some paper instead of just dumping it out right away. And so that's a very nylon-y brush. I was just kind of checking it. So the other thing is when you open up your packaging, keep them, because this one right here, you could cut it in half here and have a tag, and cut it in half here, and you'd have a tag already with an opening on it. Once you cover it up, the little wrinkles will disappear because I wrinkled it. But don't forget to look at your package. And like this right here, it's got all these little dents in it. You could use that as a palette to put a little bit of paint in, so you're not leaving your paints open. So I would keep that too. So just remember, you don't have to look at things. You don't have to have, I don't have to go, whoops, I don't have to go buy a paint palette. That right there is a perfect paint palette. So, but I am just going to, let's do some dark blue. And I'll just use this brush. And I'm just going to take some of our paint, and I'm just going to put it in the water. And so, like I said, I do this, and sometimes when I am painting, I do have 2 things of water, and I use one, like if I'm doing blues and reds, I may put them in one, and then if I'm doing something like blacks and browns, put them in the other, so that I know that I wind up with one water. And I didn't put a lot of that color on my brush. You know, I just took some of that paint. And I think I'm going to do just a little bit more. Now this is a way you can just make your own color. Or like I said, I just want to show you what you can do when you have your leftover paint. And I want to do some green too, because I've got some green in the fibers that I have. So now before I put my paintbrush in that green, I'm going to wipe it off. What did I do with that napkin? Here we go. And these are just like little Jello cups. You don't need anything special. I save any kind of Jello cups or fruit cups or cottage cheese containers, sour cream containers. You're going to want those. Keep the lids to those. Plastic lids make a great palette. A plastic lid is what I always use for a palette, 90% of the time. Unless I'm doing something that is super intricate where I'm going to have a lot of colors and I only need a little bit, I always use lids. And Papa eats a lot of oatmeal, and they come with a plastic lid on top. So I have quite a few of those plastic lids. I'm just going to say about that much. And I did not use very much paint at all. These are going to be very light colored. But I just want to show you how you can use your already done water. I'm going to just cut a piece in half. There we go. And then I'm going to just put it on another piece of paper. So whatever gets off the edge, I'm actually collecting that. Plus, I'm not making a mess of my table. And then I'm just going to use one of the brushes that we got at the Dollar Tree. We'll start with the green. This is going to be the lightest. Just want to make sure that it is mixed well. And then just take a brush and just paint it on there. I usually do not do both sides, but you can do both sides if you'd like to. That's all just personal preference. And it depends. If I have a whole ton of water and I really don't want to do a whole lot of pages, then I'll do both sides. But it does kind of soak through, just not as strong. So you just paint it like this, and this is going to be, again, like your coffee dyed paper. It's going to take some time to dry, so you're going to want a place to set it aside and let it dry. And see, it has soaked right through to the other side. It's a little lighter on this side than this side, but you're just going to set that aside. I guess I'll set on my tablecloth because I didn't make myself another bag, and see how the green will kind of like pool in spots. But when you're trying to get backing paper or paper that you want for like the back of a tag, or something like that, it's nice. It's nice to have some color on it, but you don't necessarily maybe want the one that we just did with the watercolor paper, because it's a little bit busy. So if you want a writing spot, then sometimes just having the lighter color and more just of a solid color, it has some interest to it, but not all of the blotches like the last one, is nice to have. And so now we have this one, and there's the other side. Now here I didn't get any. Do I want to leave that spot white? I could have, but I didn't want to. So there we go. Now we have blue paper. And look at how much we used. Not that much. And I'm doing half pages just because sometimes I just like to have a half a page, and also just because then I could put it on this paper and fit it all in shot. But here, we'll just do this. Let me fold it a little bit better. And we'll just do a whole page. It's still not folded very better, but that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to do a whole page. And I'm going to do one side green and one side blue. Now remember, it's going to soak through. And also it's going to now pick up some from the paper that I have down here. And I am putting a lot on my brush so that this goes super fast. You don't have to put that much on your brush. You can go a little slower, and you won't have as much water dripped all over. But the more water, colored water that you have on there, kind of the darker your piece will get. So there we go. So now we have this, and I'm not going to open it up until it's dry, and it's going to have some really nice texture to it because we did it that way. And so we'll set that one aside. I think I'm going to do one more like that because I think I really like that. And because I folded my paper in half, I can use that one as the actual insert into my signature instead of just gluing it onto something. This way it will fit right in my book like this. Whereas these ones, I would have to put them on top of a page for them to fit, or I could use them halfway. But I'm just going to dump this green out here since there's hardly any left. And also, that's another nice way that you can get color, is just to splash it on your paper like that and then let it dry. So that will even give you another look. And our green is gone. I don't want to leave all of this white here, so I'm going to grab a little bit of the blue and get wet wherever it's dry. Which is why I chose these two colors, because they would look nice together. And they're the colors that I have in the fibers that I bought. So the fibers that I bought are what have decided what this journal coloring is going to look like. And I didn't do that on purpose, but it might be something you would really want to think about, is like what color of things you pick up. But I got lucky. I just went in and I picked up what I got, and then I realized that they did all kind of match. But you can also do a very eclectic journal with all different colors in it. You don't have to have, everything does not have to match. I'll just kind of get the rest of that out of there. Now this one is maybe not going to be as wet on the inside, so it may have some white on the inside. I'm not sure. So I'm just going to take that one and I'm going to just set it aside like that, and we'll open it up after it's dry. And then we have this one. And I don't really think that I have enough to go out, to spread it out to the edge. And so I'm just going to leave it just like it is. And see, that even looks cool. So those are some ways that we can color our papers, whether we want coffee dyed or tea dyed if you drink tea. We have our watercolor papers, we have our painty papers, and So now we have things, and what you can also do is when you have your colors like that, I really forgot, you could take a piece of your fabrics and stick those in the colors to make some colored ribbon. So we'll do some colored ribbon in just a minute. Okay, I am back, and I've already got my plastic out with some purple and blue watercolor marker, the ones that we have here. And I've cut some strips off of my curtain and off of my pillowcase. The pillowcase was cotton, and the curtain was a sheer of some sort. And so, oh, here, you can see it now. See the splashes from the water? That's why you have to keep your surface protected. But I'm just going to, I cut a little bit of a wider piece. And then here's a piece of my curtain. And then here is a thinner piece of the cotton. And I'm just going to put those down like that. Put my bag over top of it like this. Give it a chance to soak into your fabric. And now this is what we have for ribbon. And I can go ahead and grab up some color where there isn't any. We'll get this end too that was sticking out the other side. And just go through and do it like that. Let's see what the sheer looked like, because I've never done it with sheer. I've only done it with cotton. So there's our sheer. That looks pretty cool. I like that too. So this one I still have a lot left, so I'll go ahead and I'll just do a little bit more of the blue and purple and finish that one off. This one still has a few spots that I'm not happy with how much color it has on it. So I'm going to go ahead and use the leftover color here. And I'm just doing it the same colors as I did the paper so that I have things that match in my book. Like I said, things don't have to be matchy-matchy. So there we go. So now we have this nice piece, and we can rip it into thinner pieces. I did a thicker piece in case we want to do some type of a, excuse me, where we want to do a a fabric flip in our book. Oh, excuse me, I have a terrible tickle. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit more purple and blue and finish off this larger piece and finish off the sheer piece, and then I'll be back and we'll do a solid dyed piece. Okay, I am back, and now we're going to do our painted fabric. And again, I mixed the water in the paint just exactly the way that we did for the paper. And then you just paint it on exactly the same way that you did for the paper. And it will soak all the way through, so you don't have to paint both sides. That's totally an option. Now this is the sheer, so it's really not gonna, it's gonna be very, very light. I'm not going to do this wide one because you can see what I'm doing here. And then what I'm going to do when I get to the middle is just move it over. I'm going to do a little bit more of the sheer because that piece is a lot longer, because the curtain was much wider than the pillowcase was. So I'm going to do a little bit more in the green. I'm going to move that over where there's not as much paint. And then I'm going to take a little bit of green and kind of blotch it here and there. Just to show you how you can do this. Normally I would have longer pieces. So we're going to do like that. And then we're going to go with the blue. Mix it first. I don't want too much on there. And I'm just going to kind of blotch some blue on there. So then you can make it like that also. And then I'm going to, I'll do a little bit more of the blotchy on the sheer since it's a lot longer. I don't want to put my brush back in the green after I put it in the blue because it's going to make the green disappear. And just paint it right on there and then set it aside to dry. Now you don't want to wrinkle this up too much or it will mix. If you want it to mix, then you can just go ahead and set it on itself and you'll get a little blue and green. The blue will overpower the green mostly. But I'm going to set that aside, finish up the sheer, and then I saved the best for last, which normally I use rubber bands for this next step that I'm going to show you, and I didn't buy any rubber bands. So I actually get my rubber bands on our mail. They always rubber band our mail together, so we wind up with grab a little bit of that green from there. And I'm just going to set this aside on my plastic tablecloth. And now, so we had this string. I had got this at the store, at the secondhand store. And so I cut off about 3 feet of that and took off just a piece of the white. I just went ahead and because it was all wrapped together, I just separated the white from the gold. And then I'm just going to, I have a piece of fabric that's about the size of a tin can. And I'm going to I'll do the blue first because I don't have much green left. Wait a minute, I did that wrong. Sorry. Yes, I did do that wrong. Okay. I'm going to take the fabric, put it this way. Take the fabric and wrap it around your can. And I probably have this is probably about 2 feet of fabric. You don't want to do too much or your colors will not soak through. And I should have got it wet first, but I didn't, so we're going to do it dry. But if you do it wet first, the colors soak in a little bit more. And then I'm going to take that piece. Normally what I would do, and I have a rubber band here so I can show you in case you have rubber bands. Normally what I would do is I would take a rubber band, wrap it around like that, and then like that. And I would do another one like here and another one here to get that fabric tied on. And also that's what makes our crinkles, because we're going to make some crinkle fabric here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail so that I have something to tie with. I'm going to kind of start in the middle. Whoops. I'm going to start towards the middle so that I can kind of go up and down and end at the same spot so I can tie it together. And then I'm just going to wrap it around the can and then come back down here, leaving my tail out. Let's just move my tail over. And wrapping it around the can. Now that wasn't really quite enough, so I've got it wrapped too much up here. Because you only need about 3 or 4 wraps is really good enough. I'm going to go like that. I think I could maybe wrap it one more time and tie it on this side. Ooh, it's going to be close, but we'll see if we can get it. And then we're just going to tie it. Like I said, if you had the rubber bands, your rubber bands would just go on there and they would just hold it. Okay, once I get this tied on here, and I want to kind of tie it tight because I'm going to move it, so I don't want the knot to come out. There we go. Okay, then what we're going to do is you're going to take your fabric and you're going to squunch it. Squunch it down. And when you have your rubber bands, they hold it in place really well. Squunch this down, and then I'm going to kind of pull a little bit of this string up here to hold it down there where I want it to be. Because I want it to be, you know, all scrunched up like that. Okay, now I should have had one piece of this string right at the kind toward the edges, because that will hold that top edge down so that you don't have a big flat piece of colored fabric. But it, you know, I mean, that's not going to matter. Just like that. And basically, you know, your fabric's all kind of like, it's all squished, it's all kind of pleated in there. And then you're going to take your colors and you're just going to put them on there randomly and let them soak in. And you definitely want a very watered down paint for this. And like I said, I should have wet my fabric first because this would soak in a lot better if I had got the fabric wet first. So the bottom layers may not be, the bottom layers are always a lot lighter than the top layer. The top layer winds up being very dark because we wrap this round and around. But you want to get enough on there for it to soak through. And I really possibly am going to have to get some more green because I don't think I have enough green left there. Just going to pour what's left on there. And I'm going to wipe the blue off my brush because I don't want to turn my green completely blue. And we'll see how much we can do here. So we're going to just put it on all the white spots now. And definitely we need a little bit more green. So I got a little bit of water in our spray bottle. Ooh, that might have been too much. I'm going to take a little bit of that out. And if I have extra, then what I do is I'll just paint some more paper. Don't waste it. Do one more bit. And see, we've done 3 times we've made that paint water, and there's still at least 1/4 of a tub left in there. So you really don't need a lot, and even those little pots of paint go a long way. So remember, you don't need a ton of everything. Okay. Just get this green and get it on all the light spots. Now, this has got to dry, and the biggest thing with this is patience, patience, patience. You have got to let it completely dry. Those under layers take a while. So plan on letting this dry overnight, because otherwise when you open it up, the crinkles that we made, which is the whole point of this to make our crinkle ribbon, the crinkles that we made are going to go away if it's still wet when we take the string off, or the rubber bands, whichever you used. So I'm going to hope that these are going to soak through and get to the bottom side. And I'm going to set this aside to dry. When this is dry and when everything's dry, I'll be back to show you the finished product of everything we did today. Okay, everything is dried and I've got it all picked up. I did want to show you that I did go ahead and fold up my plastics that we cut to lay out flat, because you'll find you need them at different times and it's nicer to have them where they're already cut and flat and ready to go. So I thought that these ones that we had kind of layered we would look at together. Kind of move you back just a little bit. And so I haven't taken them apart yet at all. Now this one kind of had that fold in it and we left it. So where that fold was, we have some really great color there. And I laid it on top of the lace, and so that did give us a little bit of a scallop there. And on the other side, nothing so much. And usually when you do your tea dyed and coffee dyed paper, one side winds up darker than the other. And usually one side winds up with more texture than the other. And now if you look at this and think, well, I don't want to iron it, or I don't have an iron, you can just take it and set it under a heavy book, a piece of cardboard with, you know, a sack of flour on top, something heavy to flatten them out. And that flattens them nicely. I never iron my papers. I just flatten them under a book. But if you don't have a book big enough, a big piece of cardboard with something heavy on top in a few spots works also. And then here is our tea dyed lace. And so that one came out fairly light. That one looks nice. It's darker than it was to start with. And did it leave us an impression? It didn't, not really. So there we have that piece there. And then we have this piece that had the curtain, or I guess that was our pillowcase. Now that one did leave some really pretty little, almost like little dots from the flowers here. So that's pretty neat looking. And then we have some lines in here where the string was. So we have our dyed string, which is just a little bit darker than it started out as. Let's flip this one over. And the back side has some nice texture right in here. Now, I do prefer the tea-dyed paper and tea-dyed fabrics over the coffee-dyed, especially with the fabric. The coffee-dyed, to me, gives it that really grungy feel, that really kind of, dirty look. And I like the tea-dyed better. It doesn't get quite as grungy. And so when I save up enough tea bags, I'll make exactly the same way I made the coffee paper. I'll make some tea-dyed also. But that still looks nice and grungy and gives you some texture and just some different of look. And with the other side looks good too. This side is not as bad, a little bit lighter. And the whole point of the grunge is kind of to make things look old. So, to make them look older. Now here is our dyed lace, and in some of the different spots, it has some very dark spots, and definitely along the sewn edges, it's really got some darkness to it. So that's what that looked like. Here's the other piece of that. And here is our, I just took it off of here. That's the one I said kind of looked a little bit like a little flower. And I put it on the paper. It did leave a little bit of a mark, not too much. This was the end of our curtain here, and you can see the scallops on that one. And then this is our see-through silky kind of from the curtain. And there's our last piece of that kind of coffee dyed paper. Set this aside for a second. And then this was off of the curtain, and so was this. And see, this is really, really got that grunge look to it. And so I will definitely tea dye some more of that because I just like the tea dyed a little bit better. So we have all of these. Oh, here is a cotton piece of the coffee dyed. And I just had that laid out flat. That's got some nice color to it. And then we have our, see, look at the spots where it was touching different things. This one had a piece of ribbon on it where it was touching the bottom plastic. That got some color to it. So, but we did all of these with my leftover, like 1 cup of leftover coffee. So you don't need to have a lot of anything to make a lot of something. And then we have our papers that we did with the watercolor method, with the watercolor in plastic. And so those turned out really great. So we have some of those. We have the white one, and then we have the blue and purple along with that white one. Then we have our painted papers or dyed papers. And so first we dyed one in green and one in blue. See, they're lighter on the back than they are on the front, but they do still have color on the back. And then we had the ones I left folded in half so that I could use them right in the journal already. And so this is what the inside looks like. And each side of that one has really got pretty color to it. It doesn't look like it's showing up very well in the camera, but it really is pretty. This one is nice and light inside. And then we have that. And then this is the one that we had put down that we were painting on. So we've got some great color there. We have our watercolor dyed, the thin one. I don't know what you call this, but like chiffon or something. I don't know. The curtain fabric. And then we have the cotton fabric from the pillowcase that we also dyed that way. Now on this one, I must have had more purple than blue, and the purple really overtook the blue. But it still looks really pretty. And then we have it in the green and blue in painted. This is what we did where we painted it, and in the middle we kind of mixed the two colors together. So we've got a little bit of a mix, plus some just green and some just blue. We've got the one that we made from the curtain. And this was the paper where we painted that fabric, and then we have our scrunched fabric. And so we're just going to, and also by using this, now I have dyed this cord to also match the different things we're doing in the project. So we're going to unwrap this and see how far the color went. So now we have this cord, which is really nice looking. Let's see if I can, that looks really pretty. And here is our scrunched fabric. So then you just find the end of that and then just lift it off and just unroll it. So we do still have some color here. It's much lighter, but it's there. And there we go. Get that off the can. So this is what it looks like. Now, it scrunches tighter when you do it with the rubber bands, but doing it with the string worked well also. And it's not 100% dry, so I really should have maybe left it to dry just a little bit longer. But that is what you get when you do the scrunched fabric. And this is one of my favorite techniques to do. I do this quite often also. So that is what we wound up with today. We wound up with tons of colored papers, coffee dyed papers. We have our dyed fabric. And now we're ready to use these for embellishments, for pages, for all the different types of things that we're going to want to put in our book. We have these done and ready to go to use as we move through our book. So I like to do it ahead of time. You can't always have exactly what you want. You know, sometimes you'll say, oh, I didn't dye something this color, or I need a little bit more of this or that. But it's nice to have a lot of it kind of done up ahead of time, so when you need something, you can just grab it and use it, versus having to try and tea dye. I want 3 pieces of tea dyed paper, and you do that, or coffee dyed paper, and you know, every single time you need it, because then you've got your drying time and everything else. So it's nice to go ahead and get started with a batch of things that you think you're going to need and get them all colored up and have them ready to use. So thank you very much. I know it was a really long video, but I wanted to get all of the techniques in here so that you could go ahead and get some colored fabric and some colored fibers and some colored paper, so that next week when we come back, we'll be ready for the next step. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope that you like the new series, and I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.